Hey guys, Vern. Today we are in Ephesus, Selçuk, and we're going to talk to James, who is an expat who's been living on the road since 2010. Let's check it out.
Hey, Vern.
So James mentioned to me that he just wanted to travel the world and find his place. Now, when I used to travel, I would go to different youth hostels and meet different people. And for me, it seemed like those people were looking for something. Do you connect to that?
Yeah. I think a lot of people, they want to find themselves. There's this big myth of going to Asia to find yourself, and I think that works for some people, and for other people, they just perpetually just want to look for something that they just want to explore. There's a term for it now. They call it Wonderlust. And I think that applies to me quite a lot, because for me there is no destination. I'm just wandering around.
And you started wandering in 2010?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, where are the places that you went?
So the big places for me, probably Japan. Japan was the big place for me, because from about 7 years old I always said, I'm going to Japan, I'm going to Japan, I'm going to Japan. And I had a young girlfriend when I was younger, like kid stuff, and she was Japanese. She would try to teach me Japanese, and it would never stick. And one day I decided, okay, I'm gonna go find her. And that was the birth of I was 21 when I decided, I'm gonna go. It was always a pipe dream, and when 21 I was like, I'm saving, I'm going.
Wow.
Yeah.
So did it fulfill that fantasy when you got there?
Japan is different to what a lot of people imagine. So if you've never been to Japan, you always imagine Japan being futuristic, flying cars, beautiful, future sightseeing. But it's really, when you get there, oftentimes people don't realize that it's actually like the 1970s.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
It was that far
so
back.
There's a lot of prefab houses, it's not super modern at all. They have some sections that are like, oh, here's the robot from the 90s, the Honda Asmio and stuff.
Right.
So they were incredible in the 70s, 80s, particularly 70s, 80s and 90s. And now the rest of the world has sort of moved beyond that. So, but I fell in love with Japan for different reasons. I went to go find the futuristic Japan, and I actually found and fell in love with the ancient Japan.
Wow.
I learned about samurai, the shoguns, and for me that was a real, it was like, okay, there's this other side of Japan that I guess is part of what we think of as Japan. But we think of that as Japan's past, but that's actually still very present in today's Japan.
Interesting. So how long did you spend in Japan?
So I spent about a year the first time in Japan.
Okay.
And for the first 6 months, my Japanese was non-existent. But the second half, I became pretty fluent after my first year.
Wow.
In Japan.
Good for you. And it was because of your girlfriend that was teaching you?
Actually, having a girlfriend who speaks the language is the worst thing you can do, because as soon as I learnt the words "ego di niente," which is what is this in English? It's like, what did he say? What did she say? What did he say? So eventually, I never had the need to learn. I would just have my girlfriend spoke fluent English, so I would just have. Actually, it was probably the first 6 months was the blocking point, because I didn't need to. I was an English teacher. You're not allowed to speak English, Japanese as an English teacher much.
Right.
You don't get much time to converse, and as a foreigner in Japan, it's very hard to integrate with Japanese people. Japanese people they form their own cliques, and if you're not really, you can. The more you speak Japanese, the more you know about the culture, the more you can become integrated. But it's a very difficult thing to become integrated into Japanese culture.
Interesting. So after Japan, what came after that?
So there were a few places, but Bali was really the next. I call it my baptism of fire. So it was like my eat, pray, love moment. So I had my sort of spirituality in Bali.
Wow.
It was like, but Japan was like my culture awakening,
Mm-hmm.
and Bali was like my spiritual awakening,
Nice.
because there's a place in Bali called Ubud, and Ubud is like the heart of Bali. There's no beaches, there's no nightclubs per se, or at least there wasn't when I first went. There's really no reason to go to Ubud.
It's central, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of the yoga area?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now it's become a bit of a fashionable, trendy area, so a lot of the Ralph Lauren polo, but now Bali is just, I don't know what Ralph Lauren polo did, they just blitzed. There's like more Ralph Lauren polos in Bali than I've ever seen anywhere else.
Oh my gosh.
They, but what I liked about Ubud was it was central, but there's a higher concentration of Balinese people there than anywhere else. Like if you go to Kuta, it's mostly Australians. No offense to Australians, I love Australians, but it's not the Bali experience.
Okay.
It's for me anyway. If you go to Kuta, there's a lot of Australians. There's a lot of people. It's very diverse. What I love about Bali is the Balinese people, and in Ubud, like almost every Indonesian person who lives in Ubud is from Bali, and they're just the most incredible, sweet people, and it was good to connect to them. There was like, it was like my first time really being a part of a community.
Wow. So they accepted you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like there wasn't accepting into them in the way of like assimilation. It was more like we accept you regardless of our differences.
Wow.
It was the first time I'd ever experienced that. See, growing up in London, it's a very diverse city, but people accept people despite their differences. Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, you're different to me, and I make allowances for that. Whereas in Bali, it was the first time I'd ever experienced people being different from each other, and not thinking about the difference. It was just, it wasn't like I'm trying to become Balinese or they're trying to become my culture. It was just, we're human beings, we're connected, we're different.
That's great. I like that. Yeah. And I think that's harder to find in our society. It's so sped up and people don't take the time, and Bali's still, like you say, in the central part, maybe it's slow enough that people still have time to be human.
Yeah. And I guess because there's no beaches there, there's not really a lot of stuff that go there. Like my ex-girlfriend in Australia, she's scared of going to Bali.
Really?
Because she'll probably watch this and like, I'm gonna get but she's scared of going to Bali because of some of the stories you hear about Bali.
Sure.
And I say you get from a place what you intend to get from it, So like, I said to her, you go to Bali with your yoga pants and your yoga mat, and you're gonna get that vibe. You go to Bali and you're like, hey, give me the drugs. You're gonna get the drugs. You're gonna get the party, and it's the same wherever you go.
Right.
I had a friend in Japan, and there's a huge Japanese vlogging community in YouTube there, and one of the big YouTubers called him out because he wrote he made a negative video about Japan, just crying. I hate people here, they don't like me, they never connect to me. It was a bit like, leave Brittany alone. It was like one of those videos, and it was heartwarming, it was heartfelt, because we felt like really connected. We're like, oh, I wonder what's going on here. Why is he not having such a good experience? We're loving Japan. Why is he not loving Japan?
Right.
And this big, he's got like 5 million subscribers. Yeah, I think his name is Gimme a Break Man. He looked back through this guy's videos, because he's like the daddy of the Japanese people, expats in Japan, vloggers, and he looked back through his videos and said, you've done this for Hong Kong, you've done this for China, you've done this for this place, you've done this for this place. Is it possible that the problem isn't with that place? Maybe the problem is coming with you.
Very correct to say something like that sometimes, right?
And from that, I learned from myself and from that experience, just from him and within myself, that wherever you go, you know that song, wherever you go, always take the weather with you. You know, it's always nice weather if you perceive it as nice weather.
Right. Your attitude is everything.
Yeah.
So, how long did you live in Bali when you were in Bali? What was the plan to go there?
So the first time was about 6 months.
Okay.
So I was, I think I was back in Japan at that time, and in Japan, you probably know it's known for the highest rates of work-related suicides in the world. It's called Koroshi, and I was working for a company called Namco at that point.
Okay.
And
That's a gaming company.
it's a gaming company, yeah. And we was working a number of hours, you know, like it wasn't quite what they call black companies. So black companies, they're kind of quasi legal, and in Japan they've made this absolute hard and fast rule recently, but only in Tokyo. You have to give your employees at least 4 hours off a day, because prior to that there was no law that said you have to have time off. You know, in a day. So it wasn't quite what they call a black company, but yeah, they really want the maximum, you know. And I mean, this is probably outside of the scope, but you know, for me, I personally feel that when it comes to work, you can work for 3 hours and get way more done than if you work for 20 hours, because you're fresh for those 3 hours. Okay. You know, and you in those 20 hours, you're only getting the 3 hours anyway of your peak time. But anyway, that's another story. But when you work 20 hours a day, you're a zombie most of the day. You know, you're not getting enough sleep. Right. I just needed something different, you know, and I needed to renew my visa at the time as well. And it was essentially only going to be a visa run, you know. Okay. I went down to Bali, and I just fell in love, and I ended up staying 6 months.
So you stayed 6 months, and then you went back for a longer period, or just the 6 months?
So I stayed 6 months, and then I left because my social visa ran out. Okay. But then, you know, every year, probably since 2013, I've been back for my birthday. Okay.
And how long do you stay there each time? Just a week or two, or longer?
Yeah, I mean, it sort of depends. Sometimes I'm with people.
Okay.
So sometimes I meet people on my travels. So last year I was in Bali with a friend of mine that I met, and then we traveled to various different locations, and one of them happened to be Bali. And she wanted to go to Gili Tea and you know, all the islands around there. So, you know, I hadn't been to any of them before. So yeah, it took slightly longer than a week that time.
Okay. So now you're traveling, and you have is it your girlfriend?
Yeah.
And she's from Thailand?
Yeah.
And so how did that connection happen? Were you in Thailand for some time?
Yeah, so about, I want to say almost 2 years ago, I went to Thailand, and somewhere in that year period that I was there, I met my partner, and we met in she was working in a supermarket, actually, in a supermarket, but in a restaurant, like a food court in a supermarket. Okay. And she just made me food, and we met, and you know, and we were dating ever since. And I got some work in different countries. I got about November last year, I had to go to America. I had to go to various different countries to work, and one of those countries earlier in this year, around February, I had to go to Estonia. Estonia is a great country, by the way. It's beautiful. Okay. It's a really nice place. But then lockdown happened, so I say stuck in Estonia. I could technically leave, I just couldn't go home to Bangkok.
Oh wow. Wow. So you're traveling with her, and how complicated has that been to get different visas?
Yeah, I mean, as a Westerner, I've taken for granted the power of my passport. You know, being able to just go to a country on a whim, like tomorrow I'm going to go to Jordan, you know, and I get 30 days for free. Wow. Tomorrow I'm going to go to Dubai. I don't even have to think about it. It's like, hey, tomorrow I'm going to go to here. Nice. You know, and but traveling with somebody who's from Thai, it's really made me appreciate, really made me appreciate the value of that, you know,
Right.
because we've been refused transit to go to some countries. We're not even allowed to enter the airport.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So how long have you two been traveling together?
So non-stop this time, probably about 3 months.
Okay.
But we've been taking, like you have your home base.
Mm-hmm.
When we was in Thailand, we would take various trips to Vietnam, to Myanmar and other places.
So all those places are still closed, so you couldn't
Yeah.
go back there if you wanted to right now.
Right now, yeah, no, I couldn't go back.
And
Yeah.
so that's the bummer of Asia being locked down. I
Yeah.
couldn't go to Bali in September. I had it planned out. I had the ticket booked. I wanted to stay in Asia and not go so far out. I never intended to really go to Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of under the same thing.
Yeah. So we're kind of in no man's land right now for us, you know. We're like stateless people. Like both
Boy.
me and her are not allowed back in Thailand. She's not allowed back in Thailand now, yeah.
Really?
So there's a really complicated procedure for her to get back into
Oh my
Thailand.
gosh.
And there's a semi-complicated process for me to get back into England, but of course that means she's not a part of that process.
Mhm.
So neither of us really can go back to our homeland.
Oh boy.
So we're like kind of refugees right now. So originally it was Dubai. We was in Dubai last month, just because that's where two people right now can be from those countries, and now we're in Turkey. But fortunately, next month, for my birthday, again, we're going to go to Bali.
Nice. Now, what are your plans after here? Where will you guys go?
Yeah, so we're going to go to Bali next month for another 6-month social visa. Actually, no, this time I think it's a business visa, a 211 visa.
And you both can get in on that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, because she's from Thailand. They have like an ASEAN agreement. And I think the 211 visa, e-visa right now is open to everybody.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So how long would that be good for?
So that'd be good for 6 months.
Okay.
But when I'm in Bali, I'm going to apply for a business in Bali, and I get a 2-year visa, recurring visa from that.
Wow.
Technically, I have the right to apply for a visa.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
So I wasn't aware of those options to go to Bali until I talked to you, so that's great. So for myself, I'm going to go to Albania because there's no COVID, there's no
Okay.
quarantine for an American, and I can stay up to there for up to a year
Okay.
until
Wow.
things open up. Because
Yeah.
I plan to go back to the Philippines, but I would like to transit toward Asia and be closer to when they do open up. So,
Right.
you know, if Albania is too cold, or if it's something I might not like, I might consider Bali.
I did originally think strategically in terms of how I'd be able to get back into Thailand.
Mhm.
So I was like, well, surely if I go to Tallinn, Estonia, the country that has the least amount of COVID in Europe, I was like, okay, if I go to Lithuania, which is even lower, they had like 10 cases or something throughout the whole, breakout. And I thought, okay, surely their methodology for letting people into Thailand again is going to be based on the levels of COVID in that country. Turns out I was completely wrong. They don't really care about, Thailand right now doesn't care about where you've come from, what the levels are. Thailand's undergoing a complete rebranding. So what we currently think of Thailand is it's a backpackers destination. So they want to rebrand that to be the VIP destination, kind of like a Dubai or something.
Okay.
So they have a VIP visa, which costs about $30,000 a year, and is only open to Chinese citizens right now.
But if that's their whole market, I think they're going to lose out, because one of the big attractions to Thailand was it wasn't as expensive.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
and I think the thing is when you're branding something, I know a little bit about branding. I'm not an expert, but you can't really brand away from your brand. It's like 1 minute you're branding to kids, the next minute you're branding to adults.
Right.
It's too extreme.
Right.
It's like and Thailand doesn't have the infrastructure to brand away from that. You know, they have the infrastructure to be a backpacker destination, because that just means you need cheap hotels. Check. You know, to be a world-class, you know, 5-star location, you need to have consistently across the board a really high standard. You know, and Thailand's a great place, but it, you know, it's not consistently developed.
Okay. And the other thing is with this COVID, there's not a whole lot of new millionaires that are being made, right? Everybody's spending their savings trying to get through this COVID thing. So to market the high-end people when people with little money are still wanting to travel is kind of crazy.
Right.
If the times are good and prosperous, then maybe, but not now, I don't think.
But the fact that they're focusing on China as well would suggest to me that it's strategic in terms of finance, because China hasn't been, at least the middle class, hasn't been majorly affected by the financially in the way that, say, the US or UK has. For me, Istanbul is insane. Like, the main city of Turkey is, you know, the traffic, the people. I can imagine prior to COVID it would have been incredible. The sights, the smells, the markets, the people buzzing all over the place. It's a challenge now because, you know, COVID season and stuff, so it's people all up in your face all the time, and it's very different pace of life to here. Here everyone's so friendly, relaxed, you know, we're kind of close to the sea. I find when people are close to the sea, they're just like much more chill, you know, and there's a lot less people here, so social distancing isn't too much of an issue, and, you know, and I feel like they're just a lot more chill vibe, you know, and I'm looking forward to the next places that I'm going to go in Turkey as well. I'm going to Pamukkale tomorrow, which is the natural hot springs. Oh wow! And I'm going to after that we're going to go to Antalya. So Antalya is like the Monaco of Turkey. It's like the, you know, the rich beachfront stuff. So that should be good. Cool.
So you also have a YouTube channel. Tell me about the YouTube channel that you started.
Yeah. So I have a YouTube channel called Remote Sensei. And I sort of pretty much started out being a teach people how to work remotely, or teach people how to have a sort of remote lifestyle and how to travel, and it's sort of how to be a remote traveler essentially, because like I mentioned before, I said, you know, when people said to me, what do you want to do when you grow up, you know, and I want to travel the world, YouTuber wasn't an option then. So, you know, for the last 10 years, I've been sort of teaching myself how to be a full-time traveler, you know, and work in a, so my thing is I like to work in a premium economy and live in a developing economy.
I'm the same way.
So that, you know, I can get, you know, I can earn in dollars and I can spend in lira.
Smart. That's perfect. So now you're supporting your girlfriend also, right?
Yeah.
So you have to make it work. So whatever you're doing must be working. So that's important.
Right. That is the most important thing, actually. That is really the most important thing. It became a thing for me about a year ago now, where like I had to contribute to my partner's situation, you know, and when you have no choice, you know, like, it's just like, this is good. Like, if you don't do this, if you don't make a living, someone else will suffer.
Right, you gotta step up.
Yeah, like in the past, I just didn't step up, you know, and now when somebody else is affected by this, like you have to step up. There's like, I don't even know how I do it, you know, like it's like, you know, when I was younger I would wing it, I would survive, you know, and now you can't do that when you have other people in your life. You can't survive, you have to live.
Thrive.
You know, you have to thrive.
You got it.
You know, and I think life has a funny way of, you know, you get what you have to get in life, you know, not what you want to get, what you have to get, you know, and if you make it in your life, I have to do this, you know, like for me, like, it was crazy when I realized, like, I have to go to Bali on my birthday every year. Like, it's not it's almost a non-negotiable thing. You know,
Okay.
like, and 2020 is the one year where you would expect you get a hall pass this year. You don't have to do that, but it's something I have to do, and like, I don't want to say the universe or whatever, but stuff moves out the way to make it happen.
Interesting.
And I feel like once I had another person to depend on me, like, everything has to move out of the way. You know, it becomes a priority.
It
I don't know
grows
if
you.
So yeah, it grows you. Yeah, I don't know if you ever had to make a flight. You know, like, you have to make a flight. You know, there is no other choice, but you have to make this flight, or you have to move house today. You know, you have one day to move house. You know, you move house. You know, like, if somebody said to you, you have to move house tomorrow, you're, oh God, no, what do I do? But when you have to move house in one day, you just move house.
Yeah. So what are your plans with traveling? Are you going to try to find a place to reside for a while, a home base? Or are you going to just kind of pop around for a while? What's your thoughts now?
Yeah, so I think given the COVID situation, I think it's best and more responsible for me and Gil right now just to have a home base, because you know, we are traveling and that's fun, but you know, when you're traveling with somebody who doesn't have a very powerful passport, you're limited in your options. You know, like, I feel like we've done Dubai now, we've done Turkey now, and we can't do Turkey now for another 90 days. After we leave Turkey, we can't come back for another 60 days, sorry. You know, so every country that we go to, we're kind of burning that country, you know. So I feel like once we get to Bali, we'll have like a solid base for the next 6 months, so that should be good.
Nice.
And then we'll see where the world is in 6 months.
Cool. Well, I feel like I could talk to you for hours, but I only have limited time to do these videos, so I have to cut it short. So
Awesome.
if you guys get a chance, check out James's channel, Remote Sensei, like and subscribe, and show him some love. So thank you very much. It was great meeting you, and I hope to see you again
Appreciate
in the future.
it. Thanks, Vern.
Thanks, James.
Hey, Vern.